All right, students, can you see me right and you can hear me right? If you can, just show me a thumbs up. All of you can see me right and you can hear me right. Shall we start with our first masterclass? All set? Okay. Welcome, everybody. Thank you, students, for coming. Seriously. We appreciate you guys so much. I have the honor and the privilege to introduce you to somebody that I think very, very highly of. When I was 22 and in Hyderabad, I just got a glimpse of what personal development was all about. I was young, just 22, and I knew my life was going to be changed forever. And then fast forward another 10 years in the same city of Hyderabad, and I got the rare honor to work with Mr. Srinivas Mahankali Rao for the very first time at a time when I had nothing left and I had hit rock bottom in my life. I turned to who I call a dear coach, a mentor, a friend, and a leader in the truest spirit. I turned to Mr. Srinivas Mahankali Rao at that time. Mr. Srinivas Mahankali Rao is a direct link to the modern art and science of entrepreneurship and a success mindset in the Indian startup ecosystem today. So before we start with the masterclass today, I would like to make a few important announcements. I request you to keep your videos on, as Mr. Srinivas Mahankali Rao also believes in active learning. And the way you absorb knowledge is through an engaged learning process. I hope that you've got your notepads with you, and the best way to take notes today is in a dot point format, so that after the masterclass, you may not be able to recall everything. But if you will go back to your dot points, you will be able to recall all the insights shared by MSR Sir today. Make sure to keep a water bottle by your side to stay hydrated at all times. And I also request you to stay muted until the commencement of the Q&A round with MSR Sir. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce our stage to MSR Sir. With a huge round of applause, let's welcome MSR Sir to this first masterclass on kickstarting your startup. Sir, where are you? Sir, you are on mute mode. Could you unmute yourself? Thank you so much,
Sorry.
sir.
Okay, morning, Anukriti. Thank you for that very glowing introduction. Morning, students, and pleasure. Thank you for taking the time on a Sunday. I'm sure there are other things to keep you busy, but thank you for taking the time. And we'll consider it a real honor and privilege to be talking to you. I believe we have about 30 minutes or thereabouts, right? So I put some thoughts together, in terms of in terms of a few themes around what does it take to be an entrepreneur, some life lessons which I've learned. So what I'm going to share with you is kind of lessons from the trenches, if you will, on entrepreneurship. And also I'll talk towards the end a little bit about what we are doing at T-Hub. I have to put that plug in for T-Hub because, obviously that's where I first met Anukriti. So I'm going to, walk you through that, right? And what we'll do is the intent is to try and keep it interactive, but I'll try and wrap this up in about 20 minutes or so. So that then after that, if you have any questions, feel free to, shoot.
We have a broad spectrum of students today, sir. We have students from bachelors of computer applications all the way to students of MBA. So it's a broad spectrum representation of students who have an entrepreneurial mindset and who want to learn from you.
When I say entrepreneurial, people nowadays tend to think of entrepreneurship as startups and all that. But historically, India has been entrepreneurial, and even if you go back many hundreds of years ago, we were entrepreneurial. So entrepreneurship is not necessarily about products or service, about building products or platforms. It's also about, for example, trading is one form of entrepreneurship, right? Where you buy, you buy low, sell high. That's also a form of entrepreneurship. So historically, India, you might say entrepreneurship is in India's blood, right? It's of course become very fashionable in the last, let's say in the last 15, 20 years to talk about this thing called startups, right? We need more young people like those on this call to think about entrepreneurship as a choice of career, apart from, most of us traditional mindset has been a job seeker mindset, right? Which is I go to college, I get a good education, then I get into a job. And in different parts of India, the aspirations are different. So, for example, for a very long time, most people aspire to get into, let's say, the civil services or into government sort of thing. Again, in some parts of India, for example, the part of India where I guess most of you come from, the north type of thing, I think there's even now, and I'm sure all of you saw this movie. What was it called? 12th Fail or something like that, right? 12th Fail, right? If I remember right. It talks about how people give away the best part of their lives to, want to get into the civil services sort of thing. But in other parts of India, the government doesn't necessarily hold that massive attraction. So essentially, an entrepreneurial mindset, and people talk about the four C's, right? What are the four C's today? The four C's are creativity, okay, communication, collaboration, right, and critical thinking. And these are things which, for example, even our new education policy emphasizes, because today, and we all know this, right? Lots of us go through college just to get that degree, right? But colleges don't necessarily teach you how to think, right? And essentially, colleges have become a kind of factory where the colleges are first interested in getting you in for the fees you can pay them. And then after that, if they place you in a job, then they think their job is done. But in some ways, they're failing in the most critical element, which is my belief is education should teach you to learn how to think. I'll give you a simple equation. Okay. Nothing ventured, nothing gained is one equation to think about. The second equation to think about is no pain, no gain. So resilience is an absolutely key element of an entrepreneurial mindset, which is the ability to take knocks, the ability to take blows on the chin, wake up and say, listen, I'm going to now fight the next fight. I'm going to get up the next morning and I'm not going to brood about what happened. I will take lessons from what worked, what didn't work, but I'll stand up and fight again. Right. So think about it like a boxing, 15 rounds of boxing. So you may get knocked up in the third, fourth, fifth, sixth round, but finally, maybe in the 12th, 13th round, your opponent is tired, so you can now deliver a knockout blow. We still are largely a risk-averse society. Okay, people are, I'm sure all of you must be under immense pressure from your parents. Some part of it is the right pressure, which is saying, listen, get padai karo, padai karo. If you don't study well, you'll end up doing some not so great thing type of thing, right? One, but also the pressure to saying, okay, go and get yourself a secure job. I think one key element of all entrepreneurs is, if to put it very simply, is you don't want to die wondering why you didn't do something. You may have heard this phrase. Suppose you want to ask somebody something, sometimes you are reluctant, hesitant to ask. But if you don't ask, how will you know, right? So learn to be able to take, don't, good entrepreneurs are those who don't want to die wondering why they didn't do something. You have to see communication is an extremely important element of being a good entrepreneur, because you may have a great idea, but if you can't get it across to people, how will you convey it to your investors, to your potential customers, to everyone who wants to help you, right? So this is extremely important. Everyone makes a living selling something. So entrepreneurs essentially sell hope. Sell hope. Take nothing for granted. Okay, कोई आएगा नहीं ऐसे. अगर आपके पास कुछ वैल्यू प्रोपोजिशन नहीं है तो क्यों आएंगे कोई भी? ओके, सो फॉर वॉट एवर यू हैव टू डू, यू हैव टू वर्क हार्ड. ओके,
Yes.
there is a, I will use, so I'm from the south, so obviously I'll use a south analogy just to explain. There is something called Swayam Krushi, and I'll explain that very quickly. Swayam means self, Krushi means hard work, right? So if first is you have to have a sense of self and what capabilities and experience and expertise you bring to the table. कृषि इज हार्ड वर्क. आप कितने भी ब्रिलियंट हो, अगर आप काम नहीं करोगे, हार्ड वर्क नहीं करोगे, तो यू विल नॉट बिकम सक्सेसफुल. किसी भी एंटरप्रेन्योर को पूछो, वो तो बोलेगा कि मेरे पास आइडिया था, टीम बनाया हमने, वैल्यू प्रोपोजिशन क्रिएट किया, बिजनेस मॉडल बनाया, फिर एग्जीक्यूट किया और चेंज मतलब अडेप्ट किया, पिवट किया, टाइप ऑफ थिंग टू गेट सक्सेसफुल. और अंडरलाइंग ऑल दिस इज बहुत मेहनत किया हमने. मेहनत के बिना कुछ आता नहीं है सर. दैट मच आई कैन टेल यू.
Something which I
इवन
keep
इन
telling my
माय
students all the
डिफरेंट
time.
डिफरेंट वर्जन ऑफ हिंदी कंपेयर टू योर हिंदी, बट मेहनत इज अ कॉमन वर्ड इन लखनऊ एंड इन हैदराबाद.
सर, मैं इन बच्चों से एक बात हमेशा बोलती हूँ, हिंदी में ही बोल दूं, कि हार्डवर्क और डिसिप्लिन के बिना कुछ नहीं होने वाला. Motivation,
बिल्कुल.
forget about motivation, forget about everything. Without hard work and discipline, nothing is possible.